There. In fact, I think the report gives a pretty balanced assessment of our economic approach. I think it says we've got judged fairly well the balance between managing those sort of risks, getting back to surplus, and promoting economic growth. So with respect to Australia and China, I mean, there are some risks there. We know that. We can't have much influence on them, whether China slows down or goes faster, or whether the iron ore price drops, which would affect Australia, are not things we can influence, so we're focusing on what we can influence.
The IMF does say it's important to get back to surplus, but equally it also warns against cutting too deeply. I mean, do you think you might be getting close to cutting too deeply?
No, I don't think so. I think they say we've got the balance about right, because it is a balance. We've got a unique set of circumstances here with the Christchurch rebuild gradually picking up, which means that we're getting cash coming into the country from the offshore insurance companies, and that will offset to some extent the government tightening up on its fiscal policy.
But I mean, there's always been a concern though that that's been a bit slow coming in the rebuild. So I mean, if you get a further delay in the rebuild, is there a risk that there will be a blow to the economy from the government pulling back in terms of its spending?
Look, no, I don't think so. I think the bigger risk around the rebuild would be if just confidence in Christchurch, but the signs are that activity is starting to pick up. There's an expectation that in the second half of the year it'll be significantly more than now.
Clearly a warning from the IMF about the value of the New Zealand dollar and what it's doing to the economy. I mean, is there any more that can be done to try and deal with that?
Well, look, I spoke with the people who wrote the report. They're as puzzled as we are that even though New Zealand has quite high external debt, you would expect that would mean probably a lower exchange rate. That's not happening. The exchange rate has stayed fairly high. You can see it as a vote of confidence in New Zealand, or you can see it as people trading in the dollar who are more focused on the fact that we're better off than Europe, which is in pretty awful shape. So they're a bit puzzled by it. It seems a unique set of circumstances. But it is a high exchange rate. Our exporters have done a great job of adapting to it, and we want to help them be able to be competitive even if the exchange rate stays over 80 cents.
But given that, would you expect the exchange rate at some point to fall away?
Look, I don't know if anyone thinks that they can predict what it will do. I think as long as the US and Europe keep printing money to sustain their economies, our exchange rate's likely to stay elevated. But just how elevated, we don't know.
Does another zero budget looming have implications, big policy implications? The last time round we had KiwiSaver, serious changes in KiwiSaver and working for families. Do you need to bite off similar things this time round?
Look, I wouldn't be. I'm not going to get into a discussion about the pluses and minuses around the surplus, but you wouldn't be looking at big steps like that. We've got the system pretty focused on being more efficient and effective, and that's starting to yield some benefits. So, the Prime Minister's signalled it's going to be a tight budget. It'll be a tight budget, but a manageable one.
Another kind of MFAT type situation coming for another government department, though, or several others?
Well, there's a lot of government departments making this changes, at least on the scale of MFAT, to doing so quite confidently, and at the same time as maintaining services. So we're fairly confident that we can run a tight budget and maintain, in fact improve in some cases, the services to the public, which is what we've always set out to do.
So can you rule out any surprises to KiwiSaver's budget?
I'm not going to rule anything in or anything out, but all I would say is you wouldn't expect some major surprises.
Are you going to maintain the new spending allowance that was set in the last budget?
We set last year we set a spending allowance this year for around 800 million. So when the Prime Minister says it's going to be somewhere around a zero budget, that means instead of it being 800 million in new spending, it will be net closer to zero.
But the next budget's supposed to be 1.2 billion. So is that still?
I think it's 800 and 1.2
Yeah.
over the next couple of years. Look, those are decisions that we're still to make.
So where do you find the 800 million from?
Well, that's what budgets are all about.
But there must be something that you have in mind. You're signalling that it's not going to be something major around KiwiSaver or working for families. So it sounds like it's departmental savings among ministries.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't want to speculate. All I'd say is that we have the choice of actually committing less than the 800 million and then offsetting that with other savings. So,
Were you actually close to zero on the February the 16th budget policy statement, but just decided to leave the nitty-gritty till now?
I mean, in the budget policy statement, we just signalled we were getting on with the job.
You still signalled the 800 million allowance?
Yeah, well, it's become clear that we can do better than that, so we're going to do better than that.
But it's not because of. So is it not because of the lower tax take? Is it? Sure.
Well, we've set a pretty clear target of getting to surplus in 2014-15, and the forecasts keep getting updated, and a lower tax take does mean you have to be a bit more careful with your spending.
So that's fed into the reason for the zero budget. It's not just that you can cut costs elsewhere.
Well, it's a bit of both. I mean, there's a bit, as I think everyone's aware, the tax take's been a bit softer. That makes the target a bit harder to achieve. And there are also other opportunities around saving that have become apparent, and we'll take those.
So the zero budget, though, isn't going to make that surplus in 2014-15 any better. It's just going to help you get to that target.
Well, as we've said, getting there is going to be a challenge, and this budget is a bit of a challenge to get there.
So you're still guaranteeing no cuts to frontline services in health and education and other public service frontlines?
Well, what we've said is we want effective services, and our general strategy is to try and move money to the front line. Where the front line is inefficient, of course, it'll have to be sorted out. So we're not offering any guarantees, but the strategy hasn't changed, which is to reduce our back office costs and maintain our frontline services. In fact, improve them. And in a number of areas, you're going to see people will see improvements. Just by way of example, if you can give the police a mobile technology, then you could get more frontline hours with the same number of police. So it's more policing, safer public, and we cut costs.
So in the couple of weeks between the Prime Minister again confirming that $800 million new spending, and now there has been some new numbers that have kind of dropped out of the budget process that have made the government say, we can do that, let's go for it, basically is what you're saying.
Well, I wouldn't want to get into details of the timetable. I can't recall exactly the dates, who said what. But since the budget policy statement, we've had the initial forecasts, and there's all sorts of things get bundled into the initial forecasts, from earthquake valuations to SOE profits, as well as the tax take. And we just work through taking account of all those and make our plans accordingly.
The IMF visit is just coincidental, the timing. But the Prime Minister's announcing this at the same time as the IMF has been in the country for a number of weeks, asking questions and doing what they do.
No, we do our policy. Yes, it is coincidental, but I understand they're staying for the fishing, and that will help the balance payments.